today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
I thought that success was based on money, and I thought having the most money possible was what was going to make me happy. And I'm literally driving myself into the ground at this point. And, relatively young, you recover quite quickly. So I wasn't feeling it. But on like a Friday and Saturday, I'm working close to like 24 hours a day.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Matt LeBris. Matt is a born and raised New Yorker who inevitably caught the hustler's spirit that fills his hometown streets. A Forbes 30 Under 30 nominee, Matt has worked with Daymond of ABC's Shark Tank for the past 3 years, on top of hosting the Decoding Success Podcast, founding his branding agency, 1B Branding, and traveling the country to speak in front of audiences, which helps to propel him closer to his goal of positively impacting the lives of 1 billion individuals. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Carolyn, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here. You have such an incredible story, and I'm really excited to share that with our listeners. So tell me about your business, 1B Branding, and what inspired you to start a branding agency?
I think it comes down to what I credit a ton of my personal success to, and that's my personal brand. As you mentioned in that bio, working with Daymond, that actually came about because I met him on my college campus and turned a 5-minute conversation into a job literally 2 months later. And without my personal brand and without the way that I was able to literally package myself in such short amount of time, that opportunity would have never came about, right? So when I identified what I'm passionate about, it's branding. And, I want to help businesses, I want to help individuals either revitalize their brand or build it from the ground up. So, I wanted to be in a lot is a really bad word, but just being super aligned with everything I'm doing in life. So that 1B actually represents the 1 billion individuals that I want to impact. So everything I'm doing right now is super, super aligned. And, that's the best way to describe how I got involved with this branding agency.
Wow. So is your work focused on personal branding or business branding or both?
So we've done a little bit of both, which is absolutely amazing. I can't say I like one more than the other because what I truly like is seeing the product come to life. And I hate to, call an individual a product here, but you get what I'm saying, right? Seeing that result come about, it's absolutely amazing. So we do work with businesses, not-for-profit organizations. I've worked with everything from companies in hospitality and security and a whole bunch of different areas. And then we've also worked with personal brands.
Oh, wow. That's really fascinating. And, I don't want to let the mention go by. You have a lot of really incredible stories about how your career and your life has developed. And you mentioned that you turned a 5-minute conversation with Daymond into a job offer, and would love if you could tell us how you managed to do that.
Well, it's funny. The opportunity came about when I was a student and I was literally in my 7th year of college pursuing my 4-year degree. So I just want to let that be known. Life is not always full of highlights, but I was, persevering, persisting, pushing through, trying to get that degree. And as the president of my school's entrepreneurship club at the time, I was gifted the opportunity to be one of 3 students that met Daymond on my college campus. Now, a funny story, kind of intertwined with this. I was on spring break in Dominican Republic and I received a phone call from my school to give me the news, except when they were calling me and I saw their name pop up on my iPhone, the caller ID, the first thing that crossed my mind is, why the hell are they calling me? I paid my tuition.
Of course, right.
So, I had that opportunity 2 days after I got back. And when I was in the green room meeting Daymond before he took the stage, I was just talking to him. The first thing he said to me after we shook hands was, what the hell do they teach you here? How to break people's hands? So it was definitely good vibes off the bat. And I just told him straight up at the end of the conversation when he told me he was about to hit the stage, I said, Daymond, I'm going to work for you. And just like that, I started to network and mingle with people that I knew through literally networking myself in his company. And next thing you know, I was in there.
Wow. As we all think of how to advance our own personal brands and make career opportunities for ourselves, I think that's the sort of thing that we all kind of dream about is, meeting that really powerful and amazing and influential person. And impressing them in what sounds like a relatively short time. You only had a few moments with him in the green room at that one point. It sounds like when you did the work afterwards to meet people at his company and kind of reinforce what you could bring to the company and why you believed that you were going to work there. But I don't know if you remember, what did you say to Daymond John? Did you give him like your 30-second elevator speech or, besides that you're going to work for him? Like, what did you say during those short few minutes with him?
Sure. I mean, for the 5 minutes I was with him, I think 3 minutes of that 5 were dedicated to some non-millennials trying to figure out how to operate an iPhone to take a picture. So, when I say 5 minutes, it's really about 2. And, that 2 minutes was shared with the other 2 individuals that had the opportunity to meet him. So honestly, I think it was more so the aura, more so the confidence, more so my authentic, genuine self that was just coming across. And number one, not being starstruck, right? And just treating him like another person, because that's exactly what it was. And I just gave him my very quick background. I didn't mention anything about how I could rev up his social media or drive sales here, or, it wasn't even like that. It was more so just learning about him and learning about me and, a genuine conversation like we're currently having right now, Carolyn. It was literally just like this, and obviously a lot shorter, but yeah, just, back and forth banter.
That's incredible. And it sounds like you had a connection and that you really clicked together pretty quickly too. And I think that must have helped as well. That's one of many amazing stories along your career and your entrepreneurial journey. So, it sounds like, we said in your bio, for example, that you have always had that hustling and entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. Were you always interested in starting your own business, like from your childhood? And how did that show itself in your younger years?
Well, you know what's funny? I jokingly say this, but it's so serious. At 12 years old, I opened my own restaurant, and that restaurant was on my corner in Queens, New York, and I was selling my parents' groceries. So,
did they know you were selling their groceries?
Oh, at the end of the week, I had the mark of a wooden spoon across my backside from my old Italian mother.
Oh,
and, the reason I did that was because now looking back, I wanted to create. And what I wanted to create was freedom from breaking free at that moment of having to ask my parents for money for, 12 years old. I wanted baseball cards. I wanted basketball cards. I wanted to go to the Wendy's around the corner from my house and eat, like all of those things were adding up. And me and my buddy, we just, realized the power of creating. And, back then, of course, we didn't know what we were doing when you have the mindset to create and entrepreneurship and things of that nature. But I always jokingly say that's when I caught it. And, there were trends all throughout my life that resulted in similar instances.
I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them really do start at a young age. And they, similar to you, they have that desire to make money so they can be more independent and just do fun things that they want to do. And that's really awesome that was kind of your first foray into entrepreneurship. So it's very, very cool. All right. So we learned a little about your entrepreneurial interests. So what was school like? Did you have other interests besides business and entrepreneurship when you were in school?
Well, I'm going to keep it really raw right now and just be really honest. I sucked at school. I was so bad at school. And the only reason why I made it through elementary and high school was because I went to private school my entire life. So there was no way a private school was going to not continue to push a child along. They're getting tuition, right? They're not going to hold someone back, because that would literally revoke the student right out of that school for embarrassment reasons and things of that nature. But I was actually really, really troublesome. I just liked fooling around, and I wouldn't say that I was dumb. I still don't think that was the reason. I think it was just more so creating some entertainment in my life because I found things boring. And, looking back on, my childhood and education and things of that nature, I didn't get into any high schools coming out of elementary school. It wasn't anything that was just it was just really rough, honestly, when I look back at it. And by the graces of my network and my athletic abilities, I was able to get into a school, but I got kicked out of that school after a year. And then I got kicked out of another high school in my senior year. So it was a trend. And listen, it continued in college. I mean, I failed out of college after a year and a half. I was studying something I hated. So when it comes to education, I was never the brightest star. But I will say, I will throw this in there. I did graduate college with honors.
Oh, that's great. I guess it's all about, finding your focus and what really lights you up. And for a lot of people, it's not the traditional schooling that we tend to get. So people do definitely have other interests. And you mentioned athletics. What kind of sports did you play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6'5". I played baseball and basketball. I had the build. I'm grateful for it. The God-given talents that I had. I played baseball and basketball at quite a high level. And, I was always told by coaches, by scouts, they gave me some good hope when it came to living a child's dream of playing on a professional level. You dream of that as a child, and it's a really hard dream to actually accomplish. And when I was in high school, I actually lost my dream at 16 years old. I remember I was a senior playing fall baseball for my second high school, and I'm on the pitcher's mound pitching. That was my position. Baseball was really my sport. I was just athletic enough to be good at basketball and make a team that's nationally recognized over here in Queens. And, I remember throwing a pitch and my arm just died. Like my arm literally just died. And I had one strike left on a batter. My coach didn't want to take me out of the game because of that reason. I threw the next pitch. We struck him out. The team is celebrating where we're all happy. But at the same time, I'm the only one not happy, and my arm is hanging. And what happened was I tore the labrum in my shoulder. And as a senior in high school, it was kind of just over. I lost college scholarships. I gave up on it. I didn't persevere or persist through any of the downs, which is the complete opposite of my life in full picture. But, when I look back on it, I'm just grateful for the experiences, I should say, because it rerouted me to where I am now.
So was that injury basically a career-ending injury, or could you have recovered like over the space of a year? Like what kind of made you say, all right, this is over, like I'm done, I'm going in another direction?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I had surgery by one of the top doctors here in New York. He's operated on plenty of New York Mets and New York Yankee players and things of that nature. And I had surgery done by him. Honestly, I didn't even need surgery. He actually told me, Matt, you don't need surgery. You could do some physical therapy. But he said, at your age, it's probably a good idea to do it, clean it out, do whatever you have to do inside the shoulder joint. I'm not an anatomy professor or anything of that nature. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. But, they did the surgery. I did the physical therapy, recovered amazingly so quickly, at such a young age. I think I turned 17 right as I was having that surgery. And at such a young age, your body is healing itself so quick, like so quick. And I remember trying to make the comeback to play baseball. And I'm at a practice for my high school. Now we're going into the regular season, quote unquote, regular season during the spring. And I am pitching and I just feel my arm tweaking. Like it just didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And it could have been, a little scar tissue. It could have been anything. Yet it was that moment that made me not want to go back to practice. And I think a contributing factor to all of this was the fact that I started making money around this age. I started finding something that I was having fun doing and making money at the same time. I started my first business at 17. And it was social. It was social. I was able to have a social life around this business because it was a nightlife. And I feel like that's the real reason it derailed my baseball career. But at the same time, I met so many amazing people doing what I was doing. When I look back, do I regret it? No. Do I miss it? Yes. You know what I'm saying?
That's interesting that your first business started around the same time that you kind of had to make this pivot away from athletics. And I think I had read on your website that you had a story around your quote unquote 18th birthday party at the club. Was that related to this business you were mentioning, and kind of what happened with that?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I had my quote unquote 18th birthday. It's so funny you bring that up. My quote unquote 18th birthday after an individual I was in proximity with offered me an opportunity to make some money. And I was very grateful for the opportunity because, he was an older guy. I looked up to him, drove a nice car, wore cool clothes. And I'm just like, yo, I want to be a part of this. and I had the opportunity. So I promoted my quote unquote 18th birthday, invited so many of my friends out. And I'm just going to, put the disclaimer out there. It was really my 17th birthday. And I didn't show up to the venue. I turned my phone off. I woke up the next day. At that point, we all had Blackberries. And I turned my phone on the next morning and my phone was just so blown up, like so blown up. And 2 days after that, I get a call from the individual that reached out to me that provided the opportunity. And I'm saying to myself, oh man, he's going to ream me for not showing up. He's going to, say bad things about me. Like I didn't want to answer the call, but I answered it. And he said, hey, Matt, if you can swing by my house, I have an envelope for you. And I'm just like, an envelope, kind of not knowing what that meant. But he was like, yeah, you made some money the other night. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew that. And I went over there and I forget if I made $177 or $277. I forget what it was, but it was the first like money that I made. And I just got a new car at the time. I'm like, I was on top of the world. It was such an amazing, amazing time.
Wow. So that's kind of living the dream is, how to make money and you don't even have to be there. Like, how did that work? So I guess people showed up to the club and they didn't seem too concerned that you weren't there. And it sounds like they had a good time. So how did that work out?
Yeah. So at the time, I was what we would call in nightlife a guest list promoter. People had to say your name at the door for you to get paid. And that's exactly what these people were doing. They were like, hey, I'm here for Matt's birthday. And, you have a guy at the door checking off how many people are coming for Matt's birthday. And next thing you know, it resulted in a whole bunch of cash for me.
Oh, it's really amazing. All the different types of businesses and side hustles you can have to make money. And I guess if you have that entrepreneurial instinct or interest, you find all different kinds of creative ways. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you definitely find ways, that's for sure.
All right, so let's see. So you're 17, you've got your first business that's, making some money. It's also, I guess it's probably maybe the second half of your senior year or you're sort of heading into college territory. So did you go to college right after your senior year? Did you have a break in between? How did that transition?
For sure. Living under mommy and daddy's roof, I really didn't have a choice. They kind of pushed me for that. And as mentioned, I lost all my scholarships. I had the St. John's universities of the world and colleges like that, universities like that, reaching out to me for baseball, and it was all gone. So I didn't apply anywhere else other than the schools that I planned to play baseball and or basketball at. So I was stuck going to, and I don't want to use the word stuck, that's actually a bad word, but I chose to go to Queensborough Community College, a community college here in Queens, New York, CUNY school. And I wanted to go there and study to become a teacher. And, I just told you how bad I was at school from an academic standpoint. And, it left me guessing, but I admired one of my gym teachers in my high school. And the reason I admired him was for all the wrong reasons. He had these gold Cuban necklaces and, bracelets and the Rolex watches and drove these amazing cars. And I'm like, oh, I want to be like this guy. He owns real estate all throughout the country and this and that. Little did I know he wasn't making that from what he was doing. And I don't want this to sound all around money, but it was really interesting that he influenced me to want to study academics, right? To want to become a teacher, study education. Right. So when I went to college, that's what I was studying. And it didn't take too long for me to realize that I wasn't passionate about it by me not showing up to classes and eventually failing out, going on academic probation.
Wow. What did you do? Because we know the end of the story that you did eventually graduate from college. I know it took, you said, I think 7 years. So what happened in the meantime while you were on probation? Did you go back to your business? Did you kind of try to figure out what you were going to study next? Or what was that like?
So at that point, the business was still going. At that point, when I failed out, I had so much time on my hands because I couldn't go back. I couldn't enroll for a full semester. And even when I could enroll after that, I had to wait a certain amount of time out to enroll again. I was only allowed to take a certain amount of classes. So I had so much time on my hands. At that point, I had 5 incomes. Wow. I was literally just grinding. Any way I could, I was grinding. And, it was for all the wrong reasons. I thought that success was based on money. And I thought that money, like having the most money possible, was what was going to make me happy. And I'm literally driving myself into the ground at this point. And, relatively young, you recover. You recover quite quickly. So I wasn't feeling it. But I mean, on like a Friday and Saturday, I'm working close to like 24 hours a day. And I was doing everything from delivering pizza, working in a gym. I had the business going in nightlife. I was picking up food for a friend's restaurant in my area in the morning, supplying his business with, his supplies for the day. I was doing so much. And when I look back, I think I was literally crazy.
Wow. That is really exhausting. I know when you're younger, you kind of, as you said, bounce back a lot more quickly, but that is a lot to really keep up. And, even though you weren't in college, but you had plenty of other things going on, you were making money. Sounds like, maybe you were depleting your energy, but what inspired or what propelled you to go back to college and maybe at some point say, I need to graduate, I need to get this degree? Like, you're making money. Why not just kind of keep doing that?
That's a really good question. And I don't really know the answer to it. I definitely felt compelled to go back, but it's weird. I definitely wanted the 2-year degree. I was so close to it at that point, and I transferred over to liberal arts. I switched majors, and I think it was just the fact that I didn't want to leave something incomplete in my life. And when I achieved that 2-year degree, I decided to go for my 4-year. And again, I don't really know the answer to it. It was kind of just like a guiding hand, guiding me down a path. And I feel like a lot of us have that guiding hand, but, sometimes we become resistant to it. And I've been resistant to it for quite some time. As you can tell by my story, I've been really resistant to it. And this time I kind of just listened. I kind of just, for whatever reason, whatever it was, I just listened to what it was telling me. And it told me to go get that 4-year degree. And, my life completely changed while getting that 4-year degree, definitely for the better. And I remember, one instance sitting in my friend's restaurant in Brooklyn, and we were literally just, I think it was like 3 a.m. And we were just watching videos on YouTube and talking and, about life, about business, about everything. And we came across this one video that I had seen prior to this sitting, this meeting we were having. And it was by a gentleman that I'm sure is pretty popular. Well, he's very popular now, but at the time, not so popular. And he said 3 words that forever changed my life. And those 3 words were legacy over currency. And I'm saying to myself, legacy over currency. And it dawned on me that I was living my life the complete opposite way. I was living my life currency over legacy, and realizing, holy shit, this is why I'm not happy, because I'm living the opposite way. And then I thought, what is legacy, right? To me, at that point, legacy was always about having children. But at the same time, I'm sitting right now in front of my bookshelf. I'm looking at books from Napoleon Hill and the Tony Robbins of the world. Even if those individuals didn't have children, they still have a legacy, right? And that clicked something in my mind that drastically changed my life. And that's, what brought me about to wanting to impact.
Wow. Yeah, that is really deep, legacy over currency. What is your legacy? How would you define that?
I always base it around my goal for impacting the lives of 1 billion people. Now, again, this didn't happen overnight. So if anyone's tuned in right now, I don't want anyone to think that this is like an overnight type of thing. Like that goal that I set to impact the lives of 1 billion people didn't happen until 2017, which is literally just 2 years ago. And I'm talking, in regards to all that, video watching and stuff like that, that's in 2015. So that was a 2-year gap. And, when it comes to the legacy, I feel like my legacy is being written on a daily basis. And I think it revolves around being able to bring light or be a beacon of light, or, whatever you want to call it, a lighthouse, however you want to refer to it, being someone that sheds light on people, number one, to show that they could overcome adversity. I think my story, my journey exemplifies that quite well. And I know people have had it worse than me. I know people have it better than me. I'm not here to compare stories. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, honestly, is comparisons, right? We're our own unique self. And going all the way back to branding, which is what we talked about in the beginning, branding is all about owning your unique self. There's a very famous doctor, probably the most famous doctor in the world, who says it best: there's no one in the world youer than you. And that doctor's name is Dr. Seuss, right? right? So when it comes to my legacy, I think it's all about, fulfillment and uniqueness and really shedding the light on overcoming adversity and things of that nature, living your best life, being at peace, knowing what success means to you so that you're not getting caught up in what society deems successful. I think all of these things play into my legacy that's continuously being written.
I see. And I see how that ties to the realization that you had when you were watching those marketing videos about legacy over currency, is that you, at that point, kind of realized what your truth and what your, I don't want to say the meaning of life, but like what you wanted to aim for in your life. And it sounds like you want to help other people find their own truths and reach their goals that way too.
Exactly. Bring about self-awareness to individuals. I think that's probably the most important characteristic anyone can have, is self-awareness.
Definitely. Oh, so I know you've got a couple different ventures going on now. You've got 1B Branding, your branding agency. I know you have a podcast. You do speaking engagements. Are all of those things sort of moving you towards that goal of positively impacting 1 billion people?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I started speaking in 2017. The first time I ever spoke was on Long Island. I spoke at Nassau Community College to 65 students. And I remember speaking, I was 15 minutes into it. And jokingly, I say this, but it's so true. I was 15 minutes in and the only thing going through my head was, holy shit, this sucks. Oh. And it sucked so bad that all 65 students came up to me after and told me how great it was. And it was in that moment when I realized what fulfillment felt like. And I got like this butterfly sensation in my stomach. And, kind of like how a significant other gives you butterflies. It's kind of what I was feeling. And it was in that moment when I set that goal to impact the lives of 1 billion people. So I told myself, how can I continue to do this? Obviously, I doubled down on the speaking and I went as hard as possible. I've spoke all throughout the country, in Minnesota, North Dakota, Texas, Mississippi, which is crazy to even think. Like, I'd never been to Mississippi until I went to go speak. Down in Florida, Connecticut, Jersey, obviously here in New York. I've been all over, but then I also realized that I can't speak for 365 days a year. That would be outrageous. Wow. I've taken planes back-to-back days and I was tired just from doing that, all the up and the down. So I asked myself, what else can I do to impact? Obviously I'm on social media. Social media is great, but at the same time, how many people are actually paying attention to every single post they scroll past, right? Mm-hmm. So I decided that I wanted to launch a podcast because it's, something that's always there. It's always there. And again, people scroll past it too. That's fine. But, when people tune in, it's another way to impact. It's another way for them to hear my voice, to hear my message, to, hear something that can uplift or motivate or influence in a positive way. And, then I got to a point where I realized that aside from the speaking and the podcast, I do need an income. So I wanted to do something that aligned with my passion, which is how we got to 1B.
I see. And so the speaking engagements, you said your first one was to 65 people at Nassau Community College. And it sounds like you've spoken all over the U.S. How did you get those gigs afterwards? Was it word of mouth or did you go out and pursue them? How did that work out?
While this was happening, I was working with Daymond. And as much as I had unlimited vacation and sick days and days off and things of that nature, I never wanted to tap into that. So I kind of never pressed the gas. Like when you put your car in drive, it kind of just moves forward if it's on, flat ground and not uphill or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm on that flat ground and I never really put my vehicle, I never floored the gas. I never tried. So all of my speaking engagements were literally coming about through either my network or people were seeing the content that I was putting out on social media. And yeah, I was definitely boosting some of my posts, putting some dollars behind them to, have a larger reach. But everything after that for a good year and a half was literally just word of mouth, my network, my personal network, or the content. And it was amazing. Like a woman hit me up from Jackson, Mississippi off of LinkedIn. And she was like, hey, I love your post. I would love for you to come speak. And I'm like, really? Like, this is crazy. And, it was like this compound effect and it just kept happening. And it wasn't until that I broke free of working with Daymond, and that kind of sounds bad, the whole breaking free, but when I left my position with Daymond, that's when I really doubled down and started reaching out myself. And this year in 2019, speaking has literally been through the roof.
Oh, that's amazing. And I was thinking as you were talking about, your experience working with Daymond, and I thought back to when you said earlier that you went back to college and in part sort of felt like there was a a guiding hand or a guiding force to get you to finish. But in fact, it sounds like if you hadn't been at college at that time, you wouldn't have met Daymond John. So in that way, it's almost like, yeah, that part of fate or whatever you want to call it was in place to move you on your journey. It maybe just looked a little different than you might expect if you had to plan it out.
Oh, exactly. And you hit the nail on the head. I wouldn't have met him if I wasn't in college. So, I do believe that we control a lot of our destiny, but at the same time, I'm also a little bit of a believer that some of the cards are already dealt, and, it's going to happen if it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was it like working for him?
Stressful. I'll start with that.
Yep.
Definitely stressful, but very rewarding at the same time. There's a lot of freedom in the positions there because very small company. When you think of Shark Tank and the Sharks and anyone of influence or anyone that business prominent, you think massive companies, but that wasn't the case here. And we had a very small team, and it was an amazing opportunity that was filled with learning experiences. And not only learning experiences from the work, but a very powerful word that I'm going to use is proximity. And there is so much power in proximity, and being in proximity of an individual like Daymond, someone that I aspire to be like, someone that I look up to, someone that was mentoring me. I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened. And we had so much fun, and we still do. Like, I'm very good friends with everyone that's there, and, fun, stressful. Again, I'll mention that one more time. Stressful for sure, but fun and plenty of lessons learned.
It's amazing. What kind of work did you do there?
So, the amazing thing about it is that no one has the same title. So it makes it, again, unique. I'm going to use that word again, very unique. You have your own projects. So for some examples, I was the one that launched his New York Times bestseller, which is called Rise and Grind. Me and the president of the company, obviously, we have the publishing house that works on it too, and the PR team and things of that nature, the speaking team and getting speaking engagements. We all came together to work on it. I was managing that project. I've never launched a book before. I got thrown into the fire and I was told to figure it out. That's the type of stress that I'm talking about. But amazing experience, and that's how you learn, right? You learn by trying. Or I should actually say you learn by doing. I'm not big on trying. You learn by doing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. Other than that, my role was to manage his content. So everything from his books to his curriculums and his content on social media and things of that nature, I had my hands in, which was absolutely amazing because it was a lesson for me to double down on my content,
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing experience. What compelled you in the end to stop working for Daymond and go out on your own?
I took a 15-day Euro trip last summer and I visited some of my roots. This is the first time I ever been to Europe. And as I was over there, just kind of disconnected, not connected to anything going on here. Although that did cause me some anxiety because I'm always so on and it was just so different being off. It was a real eye-opening experience. I got back, I was on a high. If you take any vacation, forget about where it is. If you take any vacation, you come back and you're on a high. And that's exactly what I was feeling. I just felt great. I felt happy. I felt fulfilled. I felt adventurous. I felt new. I literally felt new and I felt refreshed. So, I got back into the groove of working and, making things happen. I went to a personal development workshop in September. So I took that trip in the summer. September did the workshop. And I remember doing an exercise in this workshop and I started crying. And the reason I started crying was because the exercise was a face-to-face exercise with a partner. And the partner is to continuously ask you what you want, what you want, what you want. And during this exercise, the thought was in my mind that I wanted to leave my job, but I didn't know how that would be perceived by my parents who were so happy that I'm working with Daymond, my friends who are thrilled that I'm working with Daymond, right? Everyone around me, I didn't know how I was going to be perceived. And during that exercise, I remember I started to cry because the first thing out of my mouth when my partner kept saying, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" was that I want to quit my job. And the tears were just literally running down my face. And that was like the last straw. I'm like, you know what? Like there's that guiding hand that's telling you that, hey man, like you need to make this move. It's scary. It's definitely scary. it's something that's life-changing, but you need to do it. You need to do it. And, not only was I leaving a job, but I was leaving a mentor.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the even harder part because, like I said, I look up to this guy. I aspire to be like this guy. And I know that a lot of people listening can resonate. It's like when you have to make that transformation in life, it's tough. You're dealing with the uncertainties. You're dealing with not knowing what's going to happen. And that's exactly what was going on. But, it was a decision that had to be made.
Yeah. No, I understand when deep inside what you need to do next, even if standing on the outside looking in, it looks like, you have it made, you're in the perfect spot. Why would you ever change anything? Just stay for, X, Y, and Z reason. But deep inside that it's really time to do something else. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's tough, but you know what? It's always for the better. It's definitely for the better.
Very good. And do you still have a mentoring relationship with Daymond or anyone else from the company?
I'm very close with the company still because it's a very small company and they become like family. When you see people 5 days a week, sometimes 6, when you're exchanging emails 7 days a week, 24/7, although you're working, it's just like such a fun and open environment, and I'm talking like there's no cubicles or anything of that nature. It's super, super open. And, you're grabbing lunch with people, you're going out after work with people, you're having engaging company outings to Yankee games and cruises around New York City and things of that nature. And it's tough not to have a relationship with these people after. And I mean, everyone from the president down, I still talk to. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things. It's like, that's friendship.
That's great that you still continue to keep those bonds. And, now they're part of your wider network. And it sounds like you've always understood the impact and the importance of networking as well as the power of entrepreneurship. That's really extraordinary.
For sure. Networking is literally one of the best and most important things anyone can do.
Very good. So, you're now in an amazing place. You've got your podcast, your speaking, your business, even though you had a bit of I would say a rough start or a couple of years where you struggled to really find your way. What advice would you give to other people who may be struggling right now to figure out what they want to do or just trying things and things aren't working out? What advice would you give them to help find their way in either their career or their life in general?
I think that's a great question. And I think my answer might be somewhat short to that, but it's going to come down to life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. And I think when you can change your mindset to believe that and actually believe it, when you realize that the things that are going on in your life aren't happening to you and you realize they're happening for you, it's a world of difference. And the reason I mention that is because, at times on my journey, and still even today, I'm not going to say that every day is peaches and cream. I'm over here trying to get sales. I'm over here trying to record podcasts and do this and do that. And I'm like, going crazy sometimes, So I'm sure you could relate, it's tough. Sure. But then I realized that it's happening for me. And everything that's going on around me is like, I'm literally getting the chills just saying it. Like, it's amazing. And when I adopted this mindset, which was only in November of 2018. So again, not too long ago. And when I realized it, everything changed. Gratitude crept in, happiness, fulfillment, and all of these things just started to level up in my life. And they were always present, but joy and serenity and peace and all of that comes about. So if anyone listening is struggling or facing a challenging time or, kind of in this gray area of they don't know what to do with themselves, know that number one, trust your gut. I think that's a great piece of advice, especially if you're stuck. Trust your intuition, because I've never had an instance where my gut was wrong. But at the end of the day, like I said, life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to do the things in your life, but you get to do them. So it's sort of a change in that mindset. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head with that. That's a great point.
Very good. And I know sometimes it's challenging to change that mindset, particularly if you're in kind of a dark place or just really facing a lot of challenges at that time. How did you turn your own thinking around back in 2018? I know probably gratitude, it sounds like, would be part of it. I know some people do like gratitude journals or affirmations. What was your technique for doing that?
I think the first thing was time. I don't think that it was going to happen overnight. And I might have believed it was going to happen overnight. And I would definitely think that the change would happen overnight. But at the same time, I think what it came down to was repetitiveness and consistency. So to be more specific, yeah, sure, I do the gratitude journal. I have faith. I'm a man of faith. I go to church. I read, I meditate, I practice mindfulness, because meditation and mindfulness are two different things. A whole bunch of things of that nature. And I feel like all of them compounded over time. Again, I'm going to use that word time because it doesn't happen overnight. Over time, all those actions that I took to become more self-aware, to become more in the moment, more in the present, knowing who I am as a person, I think all of that truly helped.
Yeah, definitely. And things like, meditation and gratitude and all those habits, it takes practice, and it does take time, as you said, to really build that. So it's good for people to keep in mind as well. It's not just, you don't just wake up one day and you're all changed. It's a process.
Yeah, I almost wish it was that easy, but at the same time, I don't, because when, you fall in love with the process as opposed to the outcome, life is totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story. You've had so many different amazing experiences. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your work at your branding agency, 1B Branding, or your podcast or your speaking engagements?
For sure. Firstly, I want to say thank you and express my gratitude for the opportunity to be here with you. I truly appreciate this. It was really fun. Now, people can keep up with me. I'm all over social, Instagram, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the LinkedIns. I'm all over there. It's just at Matt LeBris. Website, mattlebris.com or mattlebris.com/podcast to check out my podcast. It's all over the major platforms. And 1B Branding, 1bbranding.com is how you can check us out.
Fantastic. So I'll put that information in the show notes so people can access it there as well.
Awesome. That is amazing.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Matt, for being on the show. As we close out, just want to ask if there's anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or anything else that they can help or support you with.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. And, it's not about entrepreneurship or anything of that nature. And I definitely just want to leave with this brief note. Everyone has the power to create their own future, and that's whatever they want to do, right? We're the ones that are holding the pen to write our story. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind.
Perfect. Great words to end by. Thank you so much, Matt, for being on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Beyond 6 Seconds. Please help us spread the word about this podcast. Share it with a friend. Give us a shout out on your social media, or write a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. You can find all of our episodes on our website, www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.